to accept the Palestinians gone down in the United States?
The Palestinians have a suicide vest around the UN's torso and they could blow it up at any minute. That's an incredibly undiplomatic quote from a US diplomat, an anonymous one, quoted in an editorial of the Washington Times. Now, this is quite a right-wing US paper who say the government is entirely right to stop UNESCO's funding over this issue. They say that the Palestinian moves will wreck the peace process and increase regional instability because, of course, as we were saying earlier, the Palestinians could carry out this same move with other UN bodies and force the US legally to have to defund those as well. Of course, that opinion isn't universal in the American press. Let's have a look at an article in the Huffington Post which accuses the US of dancing to Netanyahu's tune, saying they've actually defied their own national interest by going along with what the Israeli lobby would like to happen, because UNESCO funds lots of projects like technology development for the developing world, for example, which actually help US tech startups make a lot of money.
We have to remember that UNESCO is not just a cultural body, as it has lots more strings to its bow. Egypt's ruling military government is making headlines again, and for the wrong reasons. What's that about?
This is over the detention of a prominent blogger called Alaa Abdel Fattah. He was arrested on Sunday, so the pan-Arab newspaper Ahram has taken a look at his case. They say he became famous in 2006 when he was arrested under Mubarak, and then a campaign to get him freed from jail became very popular on Twitter when that network had just started up and made it famous in Egypt. But now he's been detained again for similar reasons, criticising the regime under the new government. The blog The Arabist has translated the article that the military government so objected to that he wrote about the clashes between Coptic Christians and the military police back in October. So we can have a look at that article. He says in it, he talks about seeing hundreds of families demanding an autopsy on their relatives' bodies when doctors said that the military police hadn't killed them. They were denied that autopsy, and he concludes the article by saying that it seems the human rights situation in Egypt is worse now than it was under Mubarak. Obviously, that was too much criticism for the military police to take, and it's now landed him in prison.
OK, and you've had a look at the situation in Yemen as well. Is that linked? Is it about free speech?
Well, not exactly, but let's look at the English language website there, the Yemen Times, locally. They say that Saleh is set to go the same way as Gaddafi. They say the country is tilting towards a civil war, and it looks like he's going to have more of a Gaddafi outcome than a Mubarak one, they conclude. The UN now obviously has called on him to step down, and they say the will of the people will force him out.
Now, we're also talking in the earlier bulletin about the sexual assault allegations against the Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain in the United States. What's the press saying about that?
Well, let's have a look at the front page of the Huffington Post. They call him Hazy Herman because, of course, 24 hours ago, he was denying knowing anything about these sexual assault allegations of former employees that date back to the 90s. Now, of course, he's suddenly remembered that there were two women there who took large settlements from the company he used to work for. The Daily Beast also has stuck its teeth into him today. They say he's playing the race card, and they suggest that it could even work, that by suggesting that this whole story was sort of cooked up by hypocritical liberals who object to his race, he could actually become a conservative folk hero and win over some of the Republican right.
But certainly he's been slated for being a bit hazy, as you say, and for being a bit slow to react to this. You've had a look as well at a court case making news in London involving two Russian oligarchs. Apparently it was absolutely painful to watch this testimony.
Yes, this is the Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich and Boris Berezovsky, who's an oligarch who has been living in London in exile for 10 years, having fallen afoul of Putin. Now, it turned out yesterday in court the Chelsea owner actually can't speak English. He couldn't respond to any of the questions he was asked, and there wasn't an interpreter for him in court. So apparently it was a bit...
for a stop, though.
You would think so, wouldn't you? But apparently not. But he did release a statement calling his former friend Berezovsky a delusional megalomaniac. Now, Berezovsky is suing him for $5 billion, which The Guardian thinks is the biggest ever civil suit filed anywhere in the world by one individual against another. It's over oil shares that Abramovich says Berezovsky forced him to sell, the other way around, sorry, at the beginning of the 90s. But it's a huge case.
An old business relationship has gone south. Thank you very much, Elena Cassis, for bringing us all the latest from the international press. A reminder of our top stories here on Live from Paris. Papandreou goes to the people. Greece's Prime Minister makes a shock decision. He'll hold a referendum on the new aid deal designed to slash Greek debt. The US bites back in return for full Palestinian membership. Washington pulls the plug on funding to UNESCO. The UN Cultural Agency will lose out on $60 million. And caught on camera, the FBI released